nature nut, I'm not afraid to admit. I'm wild about the wild things and I'm proud of it. I'm just a simple case, open and shut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut. Today we'll go bird watching, tomorrow we'll catch toads. The next day we'll take photographs of bugs along the road. I never get the feeling that I'm in a rut. That's why I'm a nature nut. Well, I'm a nature nut, I'm not afraid to admit. I'm wild about the wild things and I'm proud of it. I'm just a simple case, open and shut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut.
Well, hello there, nature nuts. How are you? It's winter time again, and today I think we should go looking for woodpeckers. Woodpeckers are amazing birds. They're one of those kinds of birds that seem to have a special appeal for people. You know, birds like hummingbirds, birds of prey, owls, herons. They just seem more interesting to most people than your average little songbird. Not that that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but I do like woodpeckers. Now I've got my bird photography blind here, my home video camera, got some woodpecker reading for those slow moments when there are no woodpeckers to look at.
Now we're in Edmonton, Alberta right now, right at the southern edge of the great northern boreal forest, so we do get quite a few woodpeckers in this part of the world, especially in the winter time when some of the northern species move down south. But there was one that I really wanted to get videotape of. It's usually a migratory woodpecker that goes further south from here, the northern flicker. And sure enough, it did show up on a snowy day, sat on the ground, had some food from the feeders, came up on the tray, gave us very good looks. So we're off to a good start.
Oh, hey, let's have a look at this.
This brings up an interesting point. That's a typical bird track. It's a magpie track. There are 3 toes out the front, 1 toe in the back. That's the normal arrangement for bird feet. But woodpeckers, because they live such unusual lives, they also have unusual feet. Well, here we have an unusually cooperative woodpecker. Let's use it to examine this foot business. You can see that it has 2 toes up front and 2 in the back. That's a good arrangement for supporting your weight if you spend all your time upright on the sides of trees. This one also has tremendous claws. They look like the claws of a little carnivorous dinosaur, but they're not there to grab prey. They're there to grab bark. It's called the zygodactyl arrangement of toes, 2 front, 2 back. And you know, if you've got a pet budgie or a cockatiel at home, or a parrot, you'll notice that they have the same kind of foot. You might think that's the normal arrangement, but it really isn't. The parrot family, the woodpecker family, very few others in the world of birds have the old zygodactyl foot. Woodpeckers also have a nifty sort of tail, and they use it to prop against the bark. This one isn't propping itself against the bark. That's because it's got steel wires running through its legs right now, but if this was a live woodpecker, you'd see that the tail is very stiff, props right into the bark, and each of the tail feathers, look at how stiff that is. Isn't that wonderful? They just use them to sort of ratchet their way up the side of the tree. But there's more to this foot thing, and I'll need to get over here to this big tree to demonstrate what I'm talking about. Okay, let me tell you about the evolution of bird feet. There's your regular sort of bird foot with 3 toes up front, and the back toe is equivalent to the big toe on our foot, which is in turn sort of equivalent to our thumb. Now, in woodpeckers, this toe here rotates back around so that you get 2 toes up front and 2 in the back, and the big toe is sort of out to the side as a stabilizer for side-to-side movement. For some reason, the 3-toed woodpecker and the blackback woodpecker, they don't really need that big toe. And that's the arrangement that they wound up with 2 toes front and 1 back, but the back one is not the big toe. Smaller woodpeckers, they are right up on the toes, and they can support their entire weight just with their toes up the trees. As they get bigger and bigger, though, the weight starts to sort of weigh them down, and a great big woodpecker like a pileated woodpecker will grab the tree not only with its toes and its claws, but also with the front part of its legs. So it's kind of hugging the tree like this. That's why environmentalists like them so much. They're tree huggers. Yeah, just as I suspected. Pileated woodpecker here. Probably about 72 hours ago. After some time in the bush, it becomes like a sixth sense for you. You can spot them. You can spot the trees they've been working on by those big oval excavations. There's some up there. I don't even have to look. I know they're there. They're going deep, deep into the wood. They're trying to get at carpenter ants. I'm talking big ants. Big, big ants. Deep in the wood. That's the sign of a pileated woodpecker. Oh yeah, there's some more evidence. Half the tree's missing. It's a major excavation. They make a heck of a racket when they're doing that. Many a woodsman out lost in the bush, you hear a hammering sound, follow it to your doom. You think it's another woodsman building a cabin. Turns out to be a woodpecker. I'm not gonna fall for that. Follow the beat of my own drum, the scent of my own moccasins.
Cuckoos, roadrunners, parrots, and toucans have zygodactyl feet. Owls and osprey can move one front toe back when they like.
Okay, well, we've got a good one up here. This is the pileated woodpecker. There's one in that top hole in the old dead poplar there, and that is the largest woodpecker in North America and one of the biggest woodpeckers in the entire world. You can see it's looking nervously out the hole, and that's actually a very intelligent bird. You know, they have a kind of a robotic look in their eye, but on bird intelligence tests, apparently they score up with the parrots and the crows and magpies and those kinds of things. So that bird is paying as close attention to me as I am paying to it. Oh, there it goes. Where are you going? Where are you going? Okay. Oh yeah, beautiful look. Get a load of this. Isn't this just a gorgeous bird? Black on the back with that tremendous big red crest. It's been the inspiration for many cartoon woodpeckers. The male has more red on the head than the female. Nice striped face pattern, huge bill for making those big excavations in trees. Oh, and there it goes again. And what else can I tell you about it? Well, I can tell you that it's of interest to conservationists because it lives in these very old, mature forests, and wherever those forests are cut down, it takes hundreds of years to regenerate the habitat for these things. So, it's widespread, and probably it's going to do very well in the future, but you know, it doesn't hurt to hold on to a little bit of old growth forest here and there. There was a very similar woodpecker in the southeastern states up until not too long ago, the ivory-billed woodpecker, but that species could only live in mature cypress forests, and it's now extinct. Although there are some people think there might be some in Cuba still, but they haven't been seen for many years. So probably that is a beautiful species of bird that we've lost forever. If you go further south into South and Central America, there are all sorts of gigantic crested woodpeckers that look something like this. Some of them are doing well, some of them are not. My favorite is the chestnut woodpecker. That's one I saw in Trinidad. Great big gorgeous thing. It was coming to feeders where they would feed the birds on fruit and bread. You hear that? That woodpecker is upset about something, probably upset about me, so I'll get out of here fairly soon. But it's a beautiful, beautiful bird. Always good to see, and you see how big and heavy it is too. It really has to grab onto that tree. That is a real symbol of the northern bush. You ever wonder what the woodpeckers are finding when they're poking around in an old rotten log. We're gonna have a look right here. I've got an old rotten log. I didn't decide to pick one apart in the forest because those standing dead trees, they're still very important to the woodpeckers and other wildlife. I got this one out of a pile of firewood. Let me peel a little bark for you here and see if we can find anything. Oh, what do we got? We got something. Okay, have a look at this. That's a lot of work if you were a woodpecker. Those are fly larvae. They're maggots. That's interesting. Most of what you find under the bark of old trees are beetles and beetle larvae, as well as hibernating insects that are just spending the winter there because it's a nice, safe place to spend the winter, except for the occasional woodpecker visit. Would have made a nice snack for a hairy woodpecker or something like that. Okay. Oh, wait a sec. There's something I missed. Yeah, you know what that is? That's a metallic wood-boring beetle, a buprestid. And here's its head end here, and it's the ends of its wing covers back there. It grew up in this log as a grub, and it looks like it died in the process of trying to chew its way back out of the log because it's all covered with fungus here on the back. Nifty. Nice little tidbit for a woodpecker.
Metallic wood-boring beetles and their larvae make a loud noise chewing wood and are easy to find at least in summer.
Oh man, this is a lot of work. You know how a pileated woodpecker gets the ants out of those deep cavities? Does it with its tongue. Pileated woodpecker tongue, well, all woodpecker tongues are phenomenal things, way longer than their head. If I was a pileated woodpecker, I might have a tongue that long with a little sticky spear point on the end. And it's very interesting how these woodpecker tongues work. Let me do a little demo for you here. Just a second, this is technical. Alrighty. Okay, well, a woodpecker tongue has two parts, pardon me, and they come together to form the actual tongue, and they go zinging out of the woodpecker's bill deep into the anthill, poke the ants, grab them back out, and they are then retracted back into the skull by the hyoid apparatus. You remember the hyoid apparatus? They come together, or they split apart and go back around the back of the skull and down kind of like this, and then they nestle in the right nostril as a kind of a sheath. And you don't see that because it all happens under the skin, under the feathers of the woodpecker, but that's how they get this big long tongue in and out and get their bugs with it. Yeah, you know, you don't have to see the woodpecker to know it's been here. All the bark's been flicked off this tree. That's a blackback woodpecker or a three-toed woodpecker for sure. They don't drill into the tree, they just flick the bark off. Yes, three-toed, probably a male. I was here not too long ago looking for the larvae of longhorn beetles, the larvae of bark beetles, maybe bark beetles themselves. Oh yeah, well, there's a bark beetle up there. Must have missed it, my little woodpecker friend. So, you know, there's another hole down here too, kind of a cone-shaped hole. And that's no three-toed. That's probably a hairy woodpecker. Hairy woodpecker will drill right in. Not as big as a pileated, not as powerful, but tell me if I'm boring you. I don't know. A lot of things to know surviving here in the bush. You need a sharp eye. It's not for everyone. There's no point in letting that go to waste either. Yeah, slightly nutty taste.
Woodpecker tongues can be long, short, smooth, pointed, barbed, or brush-like depending on how the woodpecker feeds.
You know, one of the big mysteries of woodpecker science is how they can hammer their heads into the sides of trees and not get a headache or a concussion. How do they do that? It does seem quite puzzling, but you know, it's even more amazing to realize that human beings can sustain incredible forces with their own skulls, and here I'm talking about highly trained martial artists. We've arranged a demonstration for you here. Don't try this at home, but check it out. Yeah, that's mighty impressive, don't you think? Now, how the heck do they do that? Well, let me tell you right off that it's actually a lot easier for woodpeckers, and I'll show you why. This is a woodpecker skull, a rather large one, and you can see that when the bill is driven into the wood, the line of force runs below the brain case, and so the critical part of the skull doesn't get too badly compressed when the woodpecker whaps his head into the side of the tree. As well, these thin bones connecting the bill to the base of the skull, they have a certain amount of flex to them. They can move against one another to a certain degree, so there's a bit of a shock absorber system there as well that's not present in the human skull. And of course, in our skull, the line of force runs right through the brain case, so you know, you gotta be careful with these things. That's why we leave it to the experts.
Woodpeckers avoid concussions in other ways as well. Small brains, little cerebral fluid, and the softness of wood all help. Pileated woodpecker, whapping on a tree. In every stand of forest old, from Miami to BC. Quite unlike the ivory bill, not been seen in years. If they survive 'neath Cuban skies, I bet there's some kind of lonely guys. Tap, tap, tap in the forest, rat-a-tat-tat on the old dead tree. Sound of claws on the bark, I saw that woodpecker looking at me. Tap, tap, tap in the forest, rat-a-tat-tat on the old dead tree. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. If I were a beetle grub, I'd neath the bark. I would fear the woodpeckers much more than the chickadees or larks. If I were a poplar tree, then I wouldn't like the holes. But if they kill the bugs that drill me, they are all such welcome souls. Tap, tap, tap in the forest, rat-a-tat-tat on the old dead tree. Sound of claws on the bark, I saw that woodpecker looking at me. Tap, tap, tap in the forest, rat-a-tat-tat on the old dead tree. Downy's like the little twigs, hairy's like the trunks. Three toes flick the bark all day in little pieces or big chunks. Flickers like the ground you see, in the summer they dance. Winter berries keep them merry, so it seems quite culinary. Tap, tap, tap in the forest, rat-a-tat-tat on the old dead tree. Sound of claws on the bark, I saw that woodpecker looking at me. Tap, tap, tap in the forest, rat-a-tat-tat on the old dead tree. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat-a-tat. Tap, tap, tap in the forest, rat-a-tat-tat on the old dead tree. Sound of claws on the bark, I saw that woodpecker looking at me. Tap, tap, tap in the forest, rat-a-tat-tat.
There's a woodpecker here someplace. It's very close. You can hear that tapping. There it is. It's a female black-backed woodpecker, and it's doing exactly what it should be doing, flicking the bark off that old dead spruce tree. The black-backed woodpecker, it's not a very colorful woodpecker, but I've become quite fond of them because once you find them, and you usually find them by hearing their little bark flicking noises, once you find them you can get really close and you can watch them for a long time without them being afraid of you at all. Pure black back, barred sides. The male has a yellow patch on the top of the head, but this is a female, so she doesn't have that. But it's a good-looking woodpecker, and a real northern woodpecker too. This is the one that used to be called the black-backed three-toed woodpecker, and before that it was called the Arctic woodpecker. Its scientific name is Picoides arcticus, and we're coming to the end of our little woodpecker adventure here, and I should apologize for the northern bias. Most of our medium-sized to small woodpeckers up here are Picoides woodpeckers, like the downy, the hairy, the black-backed, and the three-toed. If you go further south into the States especially, you'll find that most of the small woodpeckers are Melanerpes woodpeckers, and that's a whole nother realm of nifty birds. The acorn woodpecker is a Melanerpes. It's a social woodpecker that lives together in groups. They drill holes in trees and the sides of buildings to store acorns to eat later on. Very interesting, very complex, and very beautiful bird. Also in the southwest, you'll find the Gila woodpecker that makes its nesting cavities right inside those tall saguaro cacti. If you go into the southeast, now there are things like the red-bellied woodpecker. It looks quite similar, but I've seen those ones pecking on palm trees. And then down along the Rio Grande, there's another good one, the golden-fronted woodpecker. They're all beautiful birds, and the variety just keeps going on and on. We've just touched the tip of the iceberg. Anyway, I hope you get out and see some woodpeckers for yourself. Come on up here, see some of our black-backed woodpeckers. I don't know, I'm a nature nut, and I hope you are too. See you again soon. Tap, tap, tap in the forest. Rat-a-tat-tat on the old dead tree.
Same time each and every week, uncensored and uncut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut.